Hi, so today I'm going to be waxing my eyebrows. So I'm freshly showered and I have my hair back in a bun and a headband. And you want to make sure all the little hairs are as in there as possible because it really hurts and sucks when you are trying to wax up above your eyebrow or on the side and you catch some of your hairline. It hurts really bad. So most of us don't want to wax our hairline. I do suggest a headband just to keep all the little baby hairs out of the way. Being freshly showered is also nice because you don't have any oil or any products on your face. So if you do have makeup on, moisturizer, anything that's going to add any kind of slip to your eyebrow area, you're going to want to remove that. You want a really nice clean surface for waxing because that is key to having the wax stick to the hair and everywhere you want it to go. So I have quite thin eyebrows. They're not like bulky by any means. I actually have them microbladed just a little bit. So they look a little bit denser than they actually are. But that being said, I tend to just go around the shape of my eyebrows and not try to shape them out too intensely. I just remove the extra hairs that are hanging out around the underside of my brows usually and like in the middle. So this isn't going to be so much of a shaping video as more of just how to do the process of waxing your own eyebrows. So hopefully this gives some insight, and for my fellow kind of sparse-haired, thinner eyebrowed people, this might be helpful for you as well. Just some tips to sort of avoid waxing half your eyebrow off. So we'll get started here. So here on my tiny countertop that is really busy and messy right now, I have my wax pot, and yes, it's pretty filthy. I mean, the paper around the edge is pretty filthy, so don't mind that. It just happens sometimes. I currently have it off because I had it warming up earlier. As you can see, it's pretty liquid. And then I also just have it baggy with my little strips and my wooden sticks. But I like these because they don't have any lint and they're pretty cheap, and they come in like a really large pack. It was probably like twice this size when I got it, and I haven't gone through it yet, and it's been quite some time. And I like these little skinny sticks because they fit right in that eyebrow area a lot better than some of the thicker ones that you can buy, and they just allow for more of a precise control of where you're putting the wax. So those are the supplies you need. As far as heating up goes, this little guy only has one setting, just heats up, but I would say be wary of that just because it will continue to get hotter and hotter and hotter, and you really don't need it to be super hot the whole time. Usually what I do, well, now it's all really melty because it's been a few minutes and since I turned it off and it all melted together. But usually what I do is I'll let the wax melt to about here, maybe like a quarter to a half an inch around the middle, because it always starts melting in from the outside. So I usually let it get to about a quarter to a half an inch into the off of the edges melted, and that way, and then I just turn it off, and that way you can use that hot wax and the residual heat from the edges of the container to just continue to melt the rest. You don't want it to be super thin and liquidy. You want it to be a little bit viscous so that you can actually keep it on the stick and not just have it running straight off when you're trying to lift it up to your face. So I'm just gonna let this cool down a tiny bit more and we'll get into the actual waxing process. Just take your little stick and now it's getting a little bit thicker. So what I do is I take a little bit of wax and I drag it onto the side of the can here, and then I pick it up again so that it's this nice, like, neat little roll. And usually I start a little smaller than this, but you can kind of keep repeating this process over and over and over again until you're satisfied with the little bead of wax that you've gotten. And if there's a string, just kind of spin it around. But at this point, the wax should be moving, but it shouldn't be so liquidy that it just falls right off. First things first, just about the only thing I ever take my eyebrow piercing out for is waxing. You don't want to get so much wax on your stick that it's going to make it really, really difficult to work with and get it all over your eyebrow area. Mistakes happen, and you can avoid like an area of wax if you get it somewhere you don't want to get it, and you can remove it with oil, but it's just kind of a painstaking and annoying process, and then it's kind of like you're starting over. So smaller beads, smaller little bits of wax are better. You can always work your way up to being a little bit more confident, using a little bit more product at one time and having success with that. So now that I've shown you how to do your little wax ball, I'm going to grab some and make sure you have a wax strip in reach. So just twirling my little string off, and I guess I should grab my mirror. So I'm actually, let's start with the side. Why not? I'll get a little closer. So I am basically painting this a little bit lower than my eyebrow line. You don't want to go all the way up because usually the excess hairs start lower. And if you need a little more, you can just add. You don't want to go too slowly because you want to be able to take the wax back off while it's still a little bit fluid and warm. So it should feel warm to the touch. And so I have this nice little area right here that I've applied. And now what you do, you want to apply toward the growth, but you want to wax against the growth. So I'm putting my strip on toward the growth. It's going with the way that my hairs are going. And you can see the wax under there. I like to rub it. I think it helps to really solidify the bond between the wax and the hair and everything. You can stretch your skin a little bit to keep it taut and just pull. And faster is better. No point in, messing around and taking your time with it. It's gonna hurt way more than if you just pull it off. And it is scary at first. I remember the first time I ever waxed my eyebrows. I was terrified, and I was like sitting there and I was like, you have to do it. It's on now. You have to do it. So sometimes doing like a little 1, 2, 3 helps a lot. Well, that's basically what I will do for the underside. It's really just the excess hair. Also, if you have a little eyebrow brush, you can get some hairs out of the way if you need to, or like for the upper area, a lot of the time I will just brush them downward. A little waxy wax. Got my mirror. If it starts dripping, just don't panic. Just go back toward your pot and like kind of readjust. So once again, we want to go toward the growth. And for me, it's like this right here. And again, I'm staying about, I don't know, like a millimeter away from the perimeter of my actual eyebrow, the majority of it. I'm gonna use the same strip. I like to use the folded side, like see how this is folding over? I like to use the other side underneath so it's really smooth and on the fold so that when you rip it off, it's just easier. You have a little ledge. So again, pressing a little bit and tear it off. This is where I'll go for this portion. Oh, see, it's stuck to my eyelid. It's okay. It's not ideal, but it's okay. It's just not as comfortable. So when that happens, just kind of try to get in there and get the strip on as much area as you can. I mean, there's no hair on your eyelid, so it's not like it's gonna pull anything or hurt really bad. It's just not like ideal. Cosmetologist rules say don't wax more than once, pretty much on the same exact area. I do not always follow that rule. For some people, their skin might be more sensitive, and also it might get like redder. So just be mindful of that, and sometimes that's just sort of something you have to figure out for yourself. Also, I always check for excess wax. So I just kind of go around and using a new side of the paper or the strip, I just go around and kind of blot because the paper will pick up most of the excess if there is any. So for my final step, I'm going to go through the middle because I do get like a tiny little unibrow and it bothers the crap out of me. Usually I can tell it's time to wax when the unibrow is starting to get out of control. So, and I just go through the whole entire thing so that you can do it all in like one fell swoop. Now, again, you don't want to go too wide apart with this. You kind of want to just go where the natural density of your eyebrows starts to taper off. So I get like these shorter little hairs that just don't belong, and I just try to barely include them in the waxed area. I start in the middle and I work my way outward. Also, these hairs in the front tend to go upward, so stroke upward first, and then what you're gonna do with the strip is pull downwards. Now, you can also use a type of wax which is called hard wax. That's the kind that you don't need a strip for. It dries down to like a hard, I don't know, it's almost kind of like plasticky. And that can be really good for sensitive skin because it's not so sticky and it doesn't kind of stay on your skin while you're pulling it off. But sometimes it can fail to get really fine peach fuzz or little baby hairs, so you might end up having to supplement with a little bit more tweezing. So it just kind of depends on what your personal preference is and what you need to do to have like the most comfort and everything. So that is another option. But anyway, this is the first brow waxed, and I'm gonna do the other brow off camera, and then we can do a little bit of trimming as well because Personally, I rely on trimming almost more than waxing to keep my eyebrows looking shapely and neat and to make makeup go on easier and all that stuff. So I will be right back. Okay, so now that I know I'm done and I'm just gonna be trimming a little bit, now's time for a little moisturizer or a little oil. And you're probably gonna get a little redness around the eyebrows. It's totally normal. If you have really sensitive skin, it might be more. In that case, I'd maybe suggest like a cooling aloe gel or something like that to really tone down the redness. There are wax kits that come with a cleanser, a aloe gel, an oil, and a lotion. And those can be really nice because then you don't even have to think about it. You just go step 1, 2, 3. So I'm just gonna comb my eyebrow hairs upward at first. I have a tiny pair of scissors that came in a tweezing kit. And I just get any of the little hairs that are poking out too much. And I usually go over this area as well. Right? There will be some little hairs on your face. Then I brush them downward. Downward, downward, downward. And I try to get as many hairs as I can. And I just snip the little ones that are longer than everybody else. I think the trimming just helps so much because instead of waxing away so much hair, you can just sort of trim it to fit in line with the rest of the eyebrow. And that way you can preserve more hair and keep your eyebrows looking a little thicker, but still neat. And this actually really helps if you're like me and you love eyebrow gels, but sometimes it gets like out of control. So then just going down again, just snipping whatever really pokes out. And sometimes they move because you press the scissors against your skin and it kind of bounces your hair up. So you might just have to do it a couple times. So sometimes I'll just get my eyebrow brush damp and I'll kind of press down and get the hairs a little bit wet so that they really stick out. If you're feeling like you're not getting enough, you want to leave some hairs there now. But this is a good way to check. And I'm talking, you have like 1 or 2 extra little hairs. And I keep going back and forth, just gradually. That way I don't go too ham. I think that is relatively straight enough and neat enough for me. So these are the steps to grooming brows, especially if you're like me and you have a little bit sparser, thinner brows. Hopefully this video was informative and gave you some knowledge if you've been thinking about waxing your own eyebrows but haven't taken the plunge yet. I know right now it's April 2020 Nobody's really going to salons or anything, but I think beauty supplies are still open. And wax pots are relatively cheap. You don't really need a fancy one. You can just get like the cheapest one they have, and it's gonna probably last you a long time. Mine was, I think, around $30, and I've had it for years. So it's not perfect, but I've learned to work with it. So anyways, let me know if you have any questions, and thanks for watching.